Hey guys, welcome to the channel. As you see in the thumbnail, what if Issei fall in love with Elsha, movie 3. Before I start, please do support for more awesome content and subscribe my channel and like this video and also share this video with your friends. I have created my other videos playlist, there you can watch my all videos easily, check out as well. And also check previous parts of this what if. Let's start this video. While Issei was busy with his training for the raiding game with Rias and her gang. The kendo duo was also busy training in their swordplay and studying in school. Though they would also from time to time talk about how they would train Issei in suppressing his pervert nature to a more tolerable level. This pattern was going on for a few days as the girls waited for Issei's return, but that all changed one day. As the girls were walking towards their home from school, they were met with a sight of a very familiar auburn-haired girl that they met at Issei's place. Elsha was on the bridge looking into the distance when she felt two people approaching her. Turning around, she found the kendo duo walking towards her. While one was looking at her in surprise, the other was glaring at her. She had a good idea why she was acting that way, which made her smirk. Just seeing her made Murayama immediately glare at the auburn-haired girl. She still hated Chelsea for trying to steal her Issei from her, and seeing her here alone and with no one on the site made a perfect opportunity to get to the bottom of this. Well, what are you doing here, Chelsea? Issei isn't here if you are looking for him. Murayama spoke first, her voice was cold and emotionless. I already know that my darling is on a training trip and that he will come back in a day or two. I talked to him before he left, so I already know what's happening. Chelsea dismisses it with a wave of her hand. Why you talk to him? When? Cadis asked in a shocked voice. She, along with Murayama, didn't expect that from the girl in front of them. Oh, that. Well, I think it was on a day when he left for a training trip. Chelsea nonchalantly told them with a smirk as she saw Murayama going red with anger and jealousy. And why didn't Issei say that? Murayama asked her as her eyebrows twitched. Maybe he didn't tell you, because you are an annoying little girl. Chelsea said with her smirk widening as she saw Murayama's face being even redder as she grabbed her kendo sword and took up her battle stance. Hey, you really think you can beat me? Even Issei will need at least 4 to 5 boosts to get to my level of power. What makes you think that you have a chance? Chelsea laughed at seeing her attempt to intimidate her. Murayama was now beyond pissed. She was really close to attacking the girl in front of her and chopping her head off. Maybe I'm not stronger than you little flat-chest girl, but I can still at least chop your limbs, you piece of shit. Oh, now I remembered your strength is in stealth, but in one-on-one you are weakling, Murayama mocked her, and from the look on Chelsea's face, her little jab worked as Chelsea faced her, fully getting into her own stance. You will pay for that insult, you slut. Chelsea told her in a low cold tone that sent shivers down the duo's spine. At that moment Cadis decided to intervene so there wouldn't be any blood loss or limbs lost in the battle that would happen soon. Wait, don't fight each other. Think about what Issei would say about you two fighting. Cadis shouted as she ran and stood in between the two with her hand stretched towards them to keep them away from each other. That did the trick as both of them a few times before they went red at the thought of Issei scolding them for being so immature and stupid. What do you both say, that we go somewhere we can talk this out? Without killing each other in the process? Cadis asked in a calm voice at seeing the two girls still red from anger and embarrassed. The duo just nodded and they followed the pink-haired girl as she started walking toward the nearby cafe in total silence. As they were sitting in the cafe with their drinks on the table, Cadis decided to begin the conversation and break the awkward silence that followed them from the bridge accident. So what are you doing here, Chelsea? Cadis finally said in a soft voice. Chelsea hummed for a moment before sighing sadly and answering her in a tender voice. Honestly, I don't want to be anywhere near my faction since their goals have become messed up so much that it sickens me. I would love to stay here near Issei rather than be there with my faction. What happened to them to change their goals? This time Murayama asked. Her previous aggression disappeared as she looked into Chelsea's sad face. Chelsea sighed again. What happened is not important, what is what I would do from now on. Since I'm pretty sure that they won't give me up that easily, and Issei since he is a Red Dragon Emperor. Eh? Both Cadis and Murayama asked in surprise. What I mean by that is, if they can't keep us alive, then they are going to try and kill us. Now let's say they can't get to us, they will target you too and his parents to get to us. Chelsea elaborated, making the two kendo girls turn white. Why would they do that? Cadis questioned, fearing for her life now. That's simple. Because the power that Issei has is very sought after. It has a potential to kill God and Mayu in the right hands. Chelsea answered in a tired voice, clearly not really wanting to talk about it. Seeing that they wanted to say something to her, she raised her hand to stop them. I will tell you about them at a later date, I promise. When both girls nodded, she smiled gratefully at them before it turned into a mischief one. She shot a teasing grin towards the brunette and pink hair girls which made them uneasy. Though I'm interested. I know that both of you hate perverts, so how is it possible for both of you to have feelings towards one of the biggest perverts in the school? Elsa asked, loving the fact that she now had a full reign to tease the girls without Issei here to stop her. That question made both Cadis and Murayama turn as red as Issei's gauntlet. What are you talking about? Murayama stuttered a little, her face becoming even redder. Why yeah, we don't have feelings for him. Cadis spoke with a cough into her fist, but her face was changing to the color of her hair, making Chelsea think that if it goes even a little bit more, she would have to think that her face was covered by her pink hair. Yeah right, I saw how Murayama acted the first time we met and then at the bridge. So you can spare me with that bullshit. Now do tell, I love a good romantic story. Chelsea spoke as she leaned forward to better listen to what the two girls had to say. The two girls looked at each other for a moment, conversing mentally on how to go about this before they nodded and turned to still leaning forward Chelsea. Fine, we will tell you, but if you tell anyone else, and especially Issei about this, I'm really going to chop your head off. Murayama told her in a low voice that promised pain. You have my word on that, girlfriend. My lips are sealed. Chelsea spoke as she made a motion to show that her lips are sealed. Oh, where to begin? Murayama mumbled before she snapped her fingers. Ah yes, that could work. Fine, Chelsea, here is how it began for me. Flashback. The 13-year-old Murayama was walking down the halls of the Kuo Middle School going to her first class of the year. As she was about to enter her classroom, she heard a male shout in the background which prompted her to turn around and see who shouted. The moment she turned around was the moment that the boy collided with her, sending both of them on the floor. Crash. As they found themselves on the floor, Murayama looked up to see who was her assailant, only for her to blush at seeing a brunette boy her age on top of her, his face buried into her still developing chest. She blushed even more when he groaned into her chest as he slowly started lifting his head to show her who he was. As he lifted his face, Murayama's heart stopped for a moment as she saw him. His short light brown hair, light brown eyes, good looks, and above average body. All of that was making her face even redder. It was like a dream come true for her. He looked perfect in her eyes. Sorry about that. I was late for class, so I sprinted towards it and couldn't stop in time. He apologized as he stood up and gave her a hand to help her up. And no, Itsune wasn't quick enough to move away. Murayama told him shyly as her face was still red. Sweet. Thought, what's your name? From the looks of things we are in the same class. The brown hair boy exclaimed as he saw that both him and the brown hair girl were going to the same classroom. Murayama was in heaven when she heard that both of them were in the same class. She wondered if he was single, since she wouldn't mind being with him. My name is Murayama Yamazaki. And yours? She shyly answered his question before asking for his name. The brown boy smiled softly at her, making her knees a little weak at his charming smile that took her breath away. My name is Issei Hyodo. It's nice to meet you, Murayama. He politely said as he bowed a little. And nice to meet you, Issei Hyodo. She replied with a little bow of her own. But before any of them could say anything more, the bell was heard prompting the duo to enter the class. From that encounter with him, Murayama was starting to fall for Issei, and from that day she would slowly start to love him. As the time in middle school passed away, Murayama started to notice that Issei was turning out to be a big pervert that was more into a woman's body than anything else day by day, but he still kept being polite and helpful to everyone in need. He was also gentle towards her and tried everything to make her not hate. In her opinion, it was impossible for her to hate him even when he started peeping at her. She was flattered that he did it, and even when she catches him and beats him up, she did it with absolute minimum strength. Murayama didn't mind very much that Issei peeped if it was her. Sure, she hated when other perverts peep on her, but if the one that took her heart did it, she was fine. While Murayama didn't mind him being a pervert, the bad reputation he has gotten was something she didn't like that much. So slowly she started to ignore him in the hopes that he would understand that he needed to change his ways. But unfortunately for her, her crush began to become even worse. Which left her almost emotionally destroyed. What happened to you, Issei? What made you become this way? Murayama sadly thought as she was slowly destroying herself from inside out. She did have feeling for Issei, but didn't have the courage to tell him, and she thought that cost her Issei's perverted side to show up. So when she met Kadisato, she was relieved that she was almost the same as her. She also hated perverts, and while Murayama still wouldn't hit Issei hard, Cadis had no such restraint as she hit him as hard as she could. Flashback end. As Murayama told them both about her past with Issei, she was almost in tears at seeing the one she loves in such a state, and she knew that, if she confronted him and told him about it, maybe she could have stopped it. And that's what happened between us. Yes, he was a pervert even back then, but anything I asked him to do he would have done it without a second guess. Murayama told them with watery eyes. Wow, I knew that he was a nice person, but that he would do anything for you. Chelsea spoke a little shocked at the revelation. Yeah, he really was nice to me, and I still think that if I asked him for anything he would do it for me, but after what he told us Murayama wanted to say it, but couldn't, so Cadis finished her sentence. About what happened at his last date made him fragile and… Cadis finished it in a sad tone. What happened on his last date? Chelsea asked, dreading the answer that she might get. Issei was murdered by Raynare, the girl that is now Rias bishop. Murayama answered, not having any restraint, as she started to sob with her tears freely flowing down her cheeks. He was what? Chelsea asked in pure shock as her face went white. You didn't know about that? Cadis questioned in surprise. And no, I didn't know that since I arrived about a month and a half ago, and from what I managed to gather he was a devil for 2 months, so I didn't know. If I did I would have killed that fallen bitch. Chelsea told the both of them while her fist went white with rage. Yeah, that's what we learned from him, and I know he is afraid of us, not so much from the beating he got from us, but from Raynare, who used his good side. Ada sadly spoke as she also knew that even though Issei was a colossal pervert, that after talking with Murayama about him and seeing for herself that he still respected and cared for those close to him made her change her opinion of him. Though she would never tell him that out loud, she was starting to see past his perverted nature, and dedication to those he treasured was something that she admired. After that, all 3 girls went silent thinking about their love interest, and little did they know they were all attracted to him by his kindness and his honesty. What all 3 didn't know was also his dragon aura that made them go to him. They were attracted towards him like flies towards the light. As they were all in their little world, all of them begin to remember their moments with him where they found it cute and funny. Cadis flashback. Get back here, you pervert. Cadis along with Murayama yelled as she and members of Kendo Club were giving chase to 3 boys who were running for their lives. Hell no, the bald boy answered as he was in front of his group. Come on Mitsuda, we can't outrun them, Cadis and Murayama will catch us. The boy with glasses told Mitsuda as he was starting to lose his breath and slightly slowed down. Come on guys, we need to get on Motohama, I got you. The brown-haired boy said as he took his friend by the arm and started to pull him to go faster. Yeah, Issei is right, we need to hurry, let's make a distraction. Mitsuda said with an evil glint in his eyes that did get unseen by Issei, but didn't go unseen by Motohama, who also had an evil glint in his eyes. Mitsuda is right. Motohama said as he forcefully stopped making Issei fall on his back as Motohama spirited away. Sorry man, but you have to take on for the team. When Issei finally stood up he found himself surrounded by the Kendo Club, but before he could get beaten to shit, 2 voices intervened. You girls, go and get the other 2. Murayama spoke as she pointed her shinai towards Issei, who gulped. We will take care of him. Cadis said as she followed Murayama's suit and pointed her shinai at Issei. Yes, captains. The girls answered before running off to give the other 2 boys their punishment. But the girls gone, the duo captains turned their attention towards the brunette who played at seeing them getting closer to him. Now Issei, I promise you that this isn't going to hurt us at all, you, on the other hand, will hurt a lot. Cadis stated before both girls started to beat Issei. Flashback end. Cadis giggled a little bit before she remembered and flinched a little because that was the time when Murayama also beat her down when she hit Issei in the family treasure. That was the first time that Murayama took her anger and frustration on her instead of the perverts, and Cadis made wove to never temper Murayama in fear of what she would do to her if she heard Issei that way. That thought brought her out of her daydreaming as she remembered that there was also one more person with them, and from all the affection that person gave Issei it was clear to her that she also had feelings for him. Elsie, do you also have feelings for Ice? Cadis suddenly asked, making both Murayama and Chelsea blink from a sudden question. What are you talking about? Chelsea nervously asked as she stole a quick glance towards Murayama, who narrowed her eyes at her, making Chelsea gulp. I asked, do you have any? If Cadis began to repeat her question before Chelsea stopped her. I heard you the first time. She quickly said before taking a deep breath. Yeah, I do have feelings for him. Chelsea confessed as she saw Murayama and Cadis's first go white. So you do have? Murayama asked, her tone low. Yes, I do have feelings for him, but I started to have them towards him a little before we all started interacting. Hearing the silence from the 2, Chelsea decided to continue. Well, it all started when I first saw Chelsea tell them as she started to tell them. Flashback. Oh come on, where am I going to find the Red Dragon Emperor? Chelsea muttered as she was making her way through the streets of Kuo. It was as luck would have it that Issei was running toward the abandoned church with Kiba and Kaneko. Chelsea couldn't believe her moment. She was whining about where to find the Emperor only for him to run past her with 2 others. Well, that was easy. Why are they running towards the church? Chelsea thought as she was wondering why they would go there. Deciding to follow them, she caught the sight of 2 more devils fighting 3 fallen angels. And from the looks of things, it looks like devils launched a surprise attack on them. What are the fallen doing here in the devil's territory in the first place? Chelsea asked herself that as she continued to watch the two devil girls fight the fallen. It didn't take long for the devils to overpower the fallen as the red hair girl shot her magic, completely obliterating the opponent she was facing. Akeno, let's go see how Issei did on his end. The red hair girl told her companion as they started walking towards the back entrance of the church. Yes, President. Akeno answered as she followed her in. Seeing this, Chelsea masked her presence and activated her sacred gear and transformed into a crow and took off with them. As they entered, Chelsea felt a strong dominated aura coming from somewhere, making her stop her pursuit of the devil girls. What's this powerful aura I'm sensing? Chelsea thought as she thought whoever was there he had to be extremely powerful, that even her sacred gear won't be able to help her. That's when she heard a powerful roar accompanied by the whole church shaking. I said, is that understood? That aura, that's the Red Dragon Emperor. Whoever pissed him off better hope that he doesn't enter Juggernaut Drive or we all are good as dead. Chelsea was lost and afraid for her life. She heard how powerful Juggernaut Drive is and what it's capable of, and the thought alone made her go white. Luckily, the extremely powerful aura that flooded everywhere was slowly vanishing, while Chelsea could still feel that after effect of it. She felt herself getting dominated, and for some strange feeling she liked it and wanted it even more. So she decided to wait until all the devils left so she could get a better look at the Emperor. It didn't take long for the devils to leave, leaving only Issei in the church. When she made her way, she saw him holding onto the blonde hair girl with tears in his eyes. That was something that greatly surprised Chelsea. She learned and was told that the Dragon Emperors were cruel, battle-hungry, and merciless without even a slight feeling of remorse or pity. But seeing the great red dragon like this made her realize that what she learned and was very far from the truth. That sparked her interest in him even more, and she decided to figure out who he really was and what made him click. Flashback end. You could say that from that day forward, my interest in him increased a lot, even to the point that I don't know what to think. Chelsea told them, as the girls looked at her a little shocked at what they heard about Issei and her little confession. Silence settled between the three girls, as all three of them were absorbing what the other two said. Wow, it takes a lot to piss Issei off, that's for sure. Murayama voiced her thoughts to break the silence between them. Yeah, I mean we beat him down so many times, and yet he didn't even snap once at us. Though truth be told, we didn't do anything that cruel to him as letting him die. Cadis agreed with her brunette friend as she understood that it was extremely hard to make Issei angry. Chelsea nodded her head, also knowing that to be the truth. She intruded into his house, and although he did show hostilities, he didn't go and attacked her on the spot because of that. Now though, do you girls have any ideas how to make use less perverted? He did ask us to help him after all. Cadis voiced a valid question. Chelsea heard a teasing smirk on her face that got the attention of the other girls. Oh, I know a perfect way to decrease his perverted nature. Please do tell, we are all ears. Cadis said, also starting to have a smirk on her face. Well, think we should provoke him, and when we see that he starts to go into his pervert mode we punish him and also give him some physical training also. Chelsea said with a smirk. She is going to enjoy sucking Ice's life dry. Cadis and Murayama looked at each other and nodded. It wasn't the best plan, but it was better than nothing. Sure, you got yourself a deal. When Issei returns we are going to begin training him. Murayama told Chelsea, whose smirk turned even bigger. And I know the perfect places to begin it. The swimming pool, that way we can enjoy ourselves and punish us at the same time. Cadis said in mischief voice. Now that sounds like a plan I would gladly follow. Plus, to make it more interesting, let's make a bikini competition between the three of us to see who is better in Issei's eyes. Chelsea added with a grin at seeing the other two girls turn red. With their little plan for Issei all set, the girls change subject to some other things as they continue to get to know each other and become friends. It's been a few hours since the game between the houses of Gremory and Phoenix. While mostly everyone in the Gremory peerage was healed and rested, only the pawn of the peerage was still unconscious after the beating he had gotten from Riser. With their ace in the hole in bed sleeping, the peerage decided to start preparing for the hated marriage party that they had to attend. Do you think Issei will be alright? Akeno asked as she entered Issei's room to bring some food for Grafia, who was patiently sitting in one of the chairs in the room. Yes, you don't need to be worried about him. He will be alright, he did take some serious damage and exhausted himself from the fight. Thank you for the food. Grafia replied as she gracefully took the food and thanked the Queen of Rias for it. It's no problem for Grafia. Thank you for keeping an eye on him. We appreciate it. Akeno spoke as she bowed to the strongest queen and exited the room, leaving both Issei and Grafia alone. As Grafia continued to watch over Issei while eating the food she got from Ria's queen, she couldn't help but remembered what she was told by her sister-in-law about the Red Dragon Emperor. She trusted Rias, but the way she acquired him didn't make sense to her. It was as if it was all set up too perfectly to be the truth, and she was worried that what might have happened was the worst case. Flashback. As Rias was reading over some papers related to the devil business, she suddenly felt a magic circle forming in her clubroom. Seeing it belonged to her clan, she expected it to be from either her brother or his wife. Which moments later showed that she was right as the latter appeared through it wearing her normal maid outfit. "Grafia, it's nice to see you. How have you been doing?" Rias asked, not showing her uncomfortableness that she felt at seeing her. "Rias, it's also nice seeing you. I'm good, though I'm here on the orders from your brother to tell you that you have less than 2 months to prepare for Riser. He started to pressure for the marriage." Grafia explained, seeing Rias flinch and starting to get angry at the message. "I thought that I still had time till that cursed marriage." Rias shouted to no one in particular as she was getting even angrier at the thought of her and Riser. "Yes, you did, but Riser along with the elders are pushing this. Well, I do have someone in my peerage that will force Riser into the raiding game and Riser will lose to him," Rias confidently said to the maid. "And who do you have that can beat him?" Maid asked, not knowing who in the Rias peerage was strong enough to beat Riser. "That's easy, I have found the Red Dragon Emperor and he is now my servant," Rias told her in a voice full of pride and confidence. Grafia, hearing that Rias has acquired the legendary beast, had her eyes wide for a second before she got her shock under wraps. Though, that begged the question on how she was able to convince the heavenly dragon to become her servant. It was common knowledge that dragons loved their freedom. "And how did you manage to get him to become your servant?" Grafia questioned her sister-in-law. Rias clearly didn't expect Grafia to question it. Sweating a little bit, Rias quickly lied in a convincing voice. "When I found him in school, I approached him and asked him to come to my clubroom. After that, I explained to him that I could sense a great power within him and that he would be approached by other supernatural beings and that he would be in danger. After he understood it, I convinced him to join my peerage, which he accepted, and from then on, it's all history." Rias quickly lied to her, hoping that Grafia would buy it. Grafia for her part just nodded, but it was something about what Rias said that made her suspicious. She knew that Rias was like a mother to her peerage, but she also knows too well that Rias was too prideful to go out of her way to earn some human being, even if it had a powerful aura around him. She could only hope that she didn't do anything stupid to the Red Dragon Emperor, because that would be catastrophic, but for now, she would accept her words. With all said and done, Grafia excused herself and left, leaving Rias to sigh in relief at the close bullet that she dodged. Flashback end. As Grafia was eating her food, she suddenly heard a grunting sound coming from Issei's bed. Lifting her head a little, Grafia saw Issei sitting up and looking around a little confused. "I see that you have awoken, Issei, that's good," Grafia told him, making him turn his head around to look at her. "Where am I?" was all Issei could say as he was still confused about his surroundings. "You are in your room, Issei. I brought you here after your injuries were healed at the infirmary," Grafia answered him as he looked around his room before returning his gaze at the maid. "I see, so what happens now?" "Drake told me that Rias surrendered to that bastard," Issei spoke, his voice full of hatred. "I was assigned to give you this pamphlet when you woke up so you could get to the party." Grafia spoke as she handed him a pamphlet with a Grimoire's magic circular. What do you need from me, Grafia?" Issei asked as he took the paper from the maid. "I'm here more as a messenger, Issei. My master said to tell you this, if you wish to free my sister, crash the party." Those were his words. "Issei, the party is in 3 days." Grafia told him as she prepared a circle to go, but was stopped when she heard Issei say something that made her widen her eyes. "Hell no, I'm not going to help that murderous bitch that let me die for her own gain." Issei mumbled to himself, but to Grafia it was loud and clear. Turning around, Grafia looked at Issei, who was still holding the paper she gave him, however his eyes were full of hatred, and if you looked closely, you would have seen his eyes turning from his brown to Drake's green. She felt pity for the boy as she remembered that her own sister was in serious trouble that might end up terrible for her. So she decided to stay a little longer and see why he said what he said. "Issei, what do you mean about letting you die?" she softly asked him, making him flinch a little at that since he forgot that Grafia was still here. Issei looked up from the pamphlet he was given with a sigh and gestured for Grafia to take a seat, which she did as he started to explain what he meant. "Did Rias ever tell you that I was the Red Dragon Emperor before that night?" Issei asked. Nodding her head, she replayed him. "Yes, 2 months before the raiding game she said that she gained a Red Dragon Emperor as her servant." "And did she mention how she had gained him?" Issei questioned, feeling his blood slightly starting to boil from anger. "She told me that she found you at school and she approached you and asked you to come to the clubroom where she explained everything to you and where you accepted to become her servant." Grafia told him what Rias said to her about him. Issei was at first shocked, then his shock vanished with it being replaced with extreme rage about the lie she used to tell Grafia. His eyes started to turn green as his aura flared out, making his house shake from it alone. Even though Grafia was way stronger than him, she was still in awe at the power that Issei had in him. The moment Issei's aura exploded, she knew that what Rias told her was a lie, and now she knew that she was going to hear the truth and she would like it. It took a few minutes for Issei to calm himself before telling Grafia the truth of how she gained him. "That bitch, I should kill her now," Issei whispered to himself but was again heard by Grafia. "As much as you want to kill her, you can't, Issei, you would become stray and then be hunted down till you're dead," Grafia told him. She knew that her master and husband would kill Issei in a flash if he hurt her, let alone kill her. "I know that, but still." He sighs heavily before taking a deep breath, calming himself. "Know this, Grafia, what she told you was a complete lie. What she did was letting me get killed by my date and then swooping in and reviving me. If she did what she told you, I would have gladly accepted her offer of becoming a devil, but she didn't go down that path, so you can understand why I'm not going to help her and I don't give a flying fuck about her. I hope she suffers." Issei explained to her in the shortest version he could. He still had nightmares from that date. Grafia was in complete shock when she heard his story. She now understood why he was completely against helping Rias, and if Surzik did that to her, she would have ripped his head off. Though Issei's next words gave her small hope for both him and her sister. "All I ever wanted was to be loved by someone. I know I'm a huge pervert, but still, what I went through on that day was something I wouldn't wish on even my worst enemy, the White Dragon. I swore over my friend's dead body that I will not be manipulated ever again, and I still stand to that. The only reason I fought Riser was so that I would be closer to getting to high class and breaking free from her, and I hate guys like him, even if he was like me not too long ago." Grafia just stood there and listened to him as he let all of his emotions out. Issei was an emotional person, she could see that clearly, so she just stepped closer to him, and before he could do anything she embraced him in a warm hug. "Let it all out, Issei. I can see that you are still hurt from what she did. I know it's hard, but you have to keep going if you ever want to break loose from her," Grafia told him in a soft and warm voice that made Issei cry. He was emotionally in such a mess that he needed to tell someone how he felt and let all of it out of his system. Grafia understood this, so she put it on herself to be his support until he was ready to move on. Issei cried in her embrace for nearly 10 minutes before managing to get control over himself. "Sorry, Grafia, for seeing me like this and for ruining your outfit." Issei apologized to the maid as he tried to get himself out of Grafia's grip, but she wouldn't let him. "Issei, what would you do if I told you that there is one person that is in similar pain that you are in? That the person is so emotionally in chaos that it nearly sent her to insanity?" Grafia softly asked, still holding tightly to Issei, trying to see what would be his reaction to her question. Issei, hearing that, immediately answered her without thinking. He was that kind of the guy, he would always help anyone in need without question. "I would do whatever it takes to help that person." Grafia heard his reply, causing her to smile at him and tightened her grip on him. "Issei, I am going to tell you a story about that person, and I hope that you would truly help her since she desperately needs it." Nodding his head, Grafia released him and motioned for him to sit as she took the chair she was sitting in not too long ago. "What I'm about to tell you, Issei, is the story about my little sister and what made her almost go insane. No one knows about it, and I hope you will keep what I tell you to yourself." Grafia told him in a serious tone that made it clear to him that if word about her got out he would be in unimaginable pain. Issei gulped a little hearing her tone, but he nevertheless nodded, which made Grafia smile again. "Well, this all happened during the Devil's Civil War." Flashback. It was moments before the final battle of the war. Both sides were gathering their troops in position for the showdown that would finally end this needless bloodshed and bring peace to the realm of the devils. On one side of the battlefield was the old Satan faction, which was led by descendants of the original Maus, and on the opposing side was the anti-Satan faction led by the strongest devils alive. The location for the battle was none other than the capital of the devils, Lilith. As the battle started, both sides pushed for supremacy in both land and air. The casualties were horrendous, so much so that even the largest battle in human history, the Battle of Kursk, was like a skirmish in comparison. Millions upon millions dead on both sides. During the Battle of Lilith, as it was called, two siblings were fighting against two other people. One of the two that the siblings fought was none other than their older sister Grafia, while the other was a red-haired man that looked to be in his late 20s. "Grafia, I didn't know that you could fall so low that you sided with the traitors. Do we mean anything to you, big sis?" one of the siblings asked. He was a tall, handsome-looking youth in his early 20s with long silver hair that went to a ponytail and red eyes. He was wearing a silver suit with some accessories. "That's not true, Euclid. I realize that if the descendants win, there wouldn't be any of us anymore. They will make the devils go extinct, and that is one thing I don't want, dear brother." Grafia replied as she blocked an attack from the other sibling that was a girl that looked like she was in her late teen years with short silver hair with light purple tone to it and dark blue eyes that were full of rage directed towards her sister for abandoning their cause. That doesn't matter, big sis, our clan gave full loyalty to Lucifer and his clan and you side with the enemy of his, that makes you our enemy now. The girl told Grafia as she attacked her again only for the red-haired man to block it. Now, Lucy, I thought that you are smarter than this. The red-haired man told the girl. You, Surzik, shut up. If it wasn't for you, both my brother and I wouldn't have to battle our own sister. Lucy yelled as she started bombarding the duo with all she had in her. All of her rage went into her attacks that consisted of ice and lightning, her most powerful elements. The attack caught both Grafia and Surzik by surprise. They knew that Lucy was powerful and to take her down they would need a bit more power than any ordinary high-class devil. They both put their strongest barriers up to block her bombardment as it was going on, each hit on the barrier made a small crack in it. Thankfully to both members of the anti-Satan faction, the relentless attack stopped before it could break through their defense. While the attack left Lucy exhausted from overusing her magic powers. Quickly using her exhausted state, Surzik sent his attack at her hoping to put her out of commission and then battle Euclid without worrying about Lucy, but to both Grafia and Lucy's shock Euclid positioned himself in front of Lucy. Then took the attack head on which caused a huge explosion to erupt where he stood that sent Lucy flying back a good 20 meters. As the debris was clearing it left the two girls in horror. Where Euclid stood now was only a 10-meter wide crater with no trace of Euclid to be found, as if he never existed. Seeing that, Grafia started crying as Lucy stood there shocked to the core. With the loss of her big brother she was left broken and just surrendered with no will to fight anymore. Flashback end. After that battle, Lucy was imprisoned as a prisoner of war. Though a few months later she was released, she is still unwilling to do anything and she is almost always locked in our clan's estate where she rarely leaves it. She is now like a shell, all life left her that day. Grafia finished her story with a sad smile. Issei just listened to the story and was shocked at what he heard. He couldn't even imagine how it must have been for both girls to see their brother get killed in front of them. So Issei just stood up and hugged Grafia tightly, surprising her. Is there any way to help your sister come out of her shell? He softly asked her, making Grafia's eyes widen at his question. I honestly don't know, Issei, I hope there is. She replied. Nodding, Issei just released her and turned around looking at the pamphlet he was still holding. What would you say about Grafia? If I could help your sister, would you help me get free from Rias? He questioned, turning around to look at the maid of the Grimoire. The look of determination in his eyes gave her hope that he just might be able to help her. Without hesitation, she nodded with a smile. You have my word that I would support and help you in any way I can. That answer made Issei smile. Then we have a Grafia deal. I will help Rias to get out of this marriage and will do whatever I can to help Lucy and you will help me get away from Rias. That is acceptable, Issei Hyodo. Now then, I'll take my leave. Remember, you have only 3 days before the party. Use them well. With that said, Grafia teleported away. When Grafia left Drag, Elsha decided to speak with Issei. That went better than expected. If I would say so myself, Drag voiced his opinion on the deal Issei made with the maid. Yes, I'm also surprised at what she told you, Issei, and that she accepted the deal you suggested. Elsha added her 2 cents also. Same here, but from what we heard I wouldn't be surprised at that. I would also seek help for my sibling without a question. As he started to remember what he was told from Grafia. Fair enough. Now though, both Drag and I made your training schedule. Elsha told him, making Issei snap back to reality. You did? Yes, we did, partner, the schedule is as such. While awake you will do the following. Run for 10 kilometers with weighted clothes, then do a series of exercises, and finally that would help you increase your stamina and physical strength. Drag started the training program of things that Issei would do in the next 3 days. But when you go to sleep, we will pull you into the gear and train you in both magic, fire breath, and combat so you can beat the Trizer guy. Elsha finished explaining the program that was planned. Well, that does sound good, and I can't wait to start. So let's go. Issei told both his partners in a voice full of excitement and joy. He was close to getting at that bastard who almost killed him. Oh, he could barely contain himself from excitement at the thought of kicking his butt. That's the spirit, partner. We will show those little devils not to mess with us dragons. Drag roared with bloodlust as he was like Issei, barely containing himself for some bird hunting. Seeing this, Elsha just sighed to herself. It looked like she would need to be the one to put the two in line, but being a warrior herself, she could understand their view and their excitement for the battle, but for now, she needed to bring both the dragon and the host to their senses. Now as much as I would also like to tear that bird to pieces. We need you Ice to train so you could be as strong as possible before kicking his butt, and Drag, I know that you are battle hungry, but could you wait for it at least a few more days? Elsha told them both, bringing them back to reality. Yes, you are right as always Elsha. Though in my defense I didn't hunt those birds for centuries so you can understand my bloodlust. Drag told her to get a nod of understanding from the second strongest user of booster gear. Sorry. No problem you two, but now Issei go and do what we told you, and when you go to sleep we will train you more. Elsha instructed Issei as he just nodded and ran outside to start his training. After the full day of training, Issei was ready to go to sleep. He was surprised to see that no one from Rias' peerage was present all day, not even her, but that only made him feel better as he was able to train in peace and talk to both Drag and Elsha without interference from the annoying Rias. As he laid in bed and started to drift off to sleep, he was immediately pulled into the sacred gear by none other than Elsha and Drag. Opening his eyes, Issei saw that he was on a meadow filled with all kinds of vegetation. It looked like heaven as nature, and the aura around it was peaceful and calm. He was brought back to his senses when he heard a giggle coming from his right. Turning around, he was met with a sight that made him start to blush viciously. Leaning against the tree was Elsha. She was wearing a crimson top with a V-cut that showed some of her breasts with a pink skirt and black shoes. Her long blonde hair was tied up into a ponytail. In Issei's eyes, she looked even prettier than before. Seeing his face made Elsha giggle even more. She was enjoying the look on his face. She knew from Drag that he was a massive pervert and that he was trying to suppress it, but getting a reaction from him was priceless to her. Now Ice, I know that you are enjoying the view, but I brought you here to train. Elsha told him with a smirk that only grew when his eyes widened before he quickly turned around, still red. Why yeah you did, so what are we going to do? Issei asked in a shy voice, still too embarrassed to look at her. Now, my little Ice, you don't have to be embarrassed at all, you are doing well in keeping that side of you. Though if you want to take me on a date, you have to work a bit harder you know. Elsha told him in a sweet voice, before winking at him in the end. Why yeah Issei barely told her as he felt blood dripping from his nose and a little light-headed that the girl like her that surpasses any model would say that so easily to him. Giggling a bit, Elsha composed herself before becoming serious. Now Issei, first I will show the basics of Norse and Slavic magic. They are known for being really powerful and can be destructive in the right hands, Elsha explained as she created a small orb of magical energy that made Issei a little scared. What is that Elsha? He was scared as he sensed the power in that small orb. You don't have to worry Issei, this is only a sample of the magic from both sides, while both are powerful individually combined they are deadly if you know how to use them. She explained to him in a tender voice with a warm smile that made Issei blush a little bit. So how can I do similar things like you? He asked. Yes, though you will need time, I will start expanding your reserves slowly. She said as she sat on the ground and motioned to Issei to also sit. With him complying with what he was told by Elsha, she started expanding his magic reserves and telling him all about magic and how to improve it. As they were training in magic, Issei found a lot of interesting things about Elsha. She told him that she was high class from birth, born between the Russian boyar that served the emperor and the Norwegian Valkyrie. Her great affinity for magic and her understanding of battle tactics and strategy made her a great ally to both pantheons. So to prevent the war over her, it was decided by both leaders of the pantheons that Elsha would become champion of both Odin and Perrin. But that decided she was constantly trained in both Norse and Slavic magic and combat skills. While she was training, she would be given missions by both factions to do, so she could gain battle experience, which later was proven critical as she helped Russians in their struggles against Ottomans and Norse countries against the Holy Roman Empire. Though she also did supernatural missions like assassinations and/or being an ambassador for both factions. As their time for training was nearing its end, Elsha decided to make Issei do one last thing before ending it. Now Issei, I will show you something that could be useful to you in the future. So close your eyes and concentrate hard and try to manifest your gear here and then enter it. I will help you with this. Elsha told him in her calm and sweet voice. Nodding, Issei did what he was instructed, but even after 5 minutes, he couldn't go past bringing his gear. So Elsha decided to give him a little magic boost. Taking his hands in hers, ignoring his insecurity, she started concentrating and transferring small bursts of magic to him. Issei would lie if he did say that he didn't enjoy Elsha holding his hands. Her soft, gentle skin, her soft smile and warm voice, her killer body, the big breast was really turning Issei on, and his blush becomes even more crimson if possible. He was barely controlling himself from groping her or pinning her down, but he also knew that even if he could gain an advantage of surprise, it would only last shorter than a second before Elsha would beat the shit out of him. So for now, until become stronger he would wait and hope that maybe there is a chance to bring her back to life, but that didn't mean that he couldn't check her out and make a genuine scan of her features. Issei. Concentrate, I know that you are a highly hormonal teen, but this for your own good. Elsha scolded him a little, seeing him check her out. Not that she minded at all, she knew what effect she had on him and she knew that he was in puberty, but for now she needed him to focus. Issei apologies, bowing his head down, hoping that she wasn't mad at him. Though Elsha just smiled at him. He was way too honest and innocent. Even if he was a perv, he didn't try to lie to her about it. That was one of the things that she started to like about him. His honesty and his will. She saw the game that he fought against Rias, and she was genuinely surprised that he was that strong, even though he managed to unlock his gear only 2 months ago. Don't worry Ice, I'm not mad, but I need you to focus and after that you will take a short break and go to Drake for more training. Okay, sweetie. She told him gently as she stroked his cheek, giggling a little as she saw his face turn from red to white at the mention of Drake and training in an instant. Calming himself a little bit he nodded and continued to do what he was again instructed. After a few more attempts he was finally able to enter it. What he saw was all a blur, but before he could continue to focus on it, he was thrown out of it. Opening his eyes he saw that Elsha had a big grin on her beautiful face. Raising an eyebrow only made Elsha laugh. That was a good attempt. Ice, I'm proud of you, you managed to be in it for 10 seconds. I honestly expected you to be there for 2 to 3 max. Why did you want me to do it anyway? It was hard as hell doing it. Issei said as he felt exhausted. That's for me to know and you sweetie to find out. Elsha replied in a sing-song tone with a wink that made Issei red. Oh okay Elsha. He started nervously a little bit feeling his blush worsen. Now Ice, it's time to go and train with Drake. Good luck, you will need it and have fun. Was the last thing Elsha said before snapping her fingers sending Issei towards Drake. Issei saw the mischievous smile she had when she told him that final part, causing him pale knowing that his partner was a battle maniac. Training with Drake proved to be just like Issei had imagination. He would get scorched, bruised, sent flying around, screaming in pain, and nearly dead. Though just like Elsha said, when he woke up he didn't feel tired or injured, but he could still feel the pain he felt in the mindscape, and that made him flinch every now and then just from the through. As his remaining days, until the wedding night passed by, he felt that he still needed more power before he was ready to get at that damned phoenix that nearly murdered him in the game. As the time of the party neared closer, Issei decided to ask Drake and Elsha if there is anything else that he could do to gain even just a bit more power to defeat that bird. There is Ice a way to gain more power, but Elsha started to answer him until she tried to let Drake finish it. A partner, you will need to sacrifice a part of your body for me to feed you more of my power, but it will also make you even more vulnerable to dragon slaying items and magic. Drake finished it, making Issei widen his eyes. So if I want to beat that damned fried chicken I need to give you a part of my body? Issei questioned, wanting to confirm what Elsha and his partner told him. Yes Issei, if you want to beat him you need to give a part as an offering to Drake. That will give you enough power to enter Balance Breaker and beat him, but know this, when you do this there is no turning back from it, think about it carefully Ice. Also, note that when you do that you will start getting greater friends and enemies even more and quicker since your dragon aura would strengthen. Elsha explained it to him. Issei started thinking about what both of them told him. Even though he didn't want to do it to gain more power this way, he knew that it was necessary to win. If he was honest with himself he would much prefer to win it with his own power, but he knew that at this point in time that it was impossible, but if he won, he would be a step closer to his freedom. And maybe down the line he would be able to help someone else break free from the chains that locked her away. Sure, gaining new even more powerful enemies is very bad, but the extra power could help a lot more in the long run. Seeing more pros than cons, Issei decided to go with it. Drake, what part of my body you want? Issei asked finally. Ice, are you 100% sure about this? Elsha questioned. Yes, Elsha. I thought out all of the pros and cons, and honestly, there are a lot more pros than cons in the long run. He answered her, before he again asked his dragon. So partner, have you decided which part? With a heavy sigh, Drake told him your left arm, Issei Hyodo. That's the payment Drake, the Red Dragon Emperor want for the power I will grant you. Issei, you need to formally say Issei Hyodo, wielder of the booster gear, accept your demand Drake, the Red Dragon Emperor. Elsha explained the rest of the procedure to him. Nodding his head, Issei repeated what Elsha told him. Issei Hyodo, wielder of the booster gear, accept you demand Drake, the Red Dragon Emperor. Very well, my power is now at your disposal. When Drake finished his sentence Issei felt his power skyrocket, he felt like he could conquer the whole world with. Just to inform you, partner, you are now able to enter the Balance Breaker, but there is a catch. You can only stay in it for 10s max. Drake informed him of Issei's attention. Though what Drake didn't tell him was that he was already at the point where he could enter his balance breaker. Though he hoped that if he pushed hard enough, Issei's emotions would unlock it. Really, Drake? Can I use it now? Issei asked, stunned that the legendary move was now within hand's reach. Yes, partner, but remember to beat the bird. You need to break his spirit or to exhaust him to the point where his regeneration won't work. Drake reminded him. Issei, I could help you in that, though I would also need payment for granting this to you. Elsha suddenly spoke, making Issei and Drake stunned. You can? Though what is the payment? Issei asked. It's really simple actually, but I will tell you about it after the fight. Though do I have your word that you will keep a promise of doing whatever I ask for a payment? Elsha told him. I shall keep my promise, Elsha, I will do anything that you ask of me. He answered firmly and honestly made Elsha smile. Very good, Ice. When the time comes I will give you enough strength to beat the chicken. Alrighty then, it's time to crash the party, beat the crap out of that fried chicken, and save that bitch from him. Issei shouted as he pumped his fist upright. Taking the pamphlet that Grafia gave him, Issei flared out a little bit of his power, making the magic circular appear under him, teleporting him to the place of the party in a flash of light that made him close his eyes. As soon as he opened his eyes, Issei was speechless at what he saw. In front of him was a huge European castle that had massive stone walls with also massive watchtowers that dominated everything except the castle's main building itself. Wow, look at this place, it's massive. Issei thought as he entered the compounds of the castle. While making his way towards the main building, he realized that he was in the Phoenix territory. They had many sculptures of the legendary bird, all in pure gold, with fire coming out of their mouths, pictures of many heads of the House of Phoenix. Though when they were getting closer to the chamber where the wedding was to happen, all three of them saw something that made their blood boil. It was a picture of the Great War from what the trio could tell, but what made their anger skyrocket was that in it was shown a none other than Drake in his former full glory, fatally stabbed by a spear of fire that went from one side all the way through the other with his blood all around the ground. If Issei's anger was huge, then Drake was extremely massive. Issei was terrified as he felt his partner's anger. He could practically feel Drake fighting himself to control the rage he got from the picture. Issei quickly jumped and tore the picture into pieces, getting a thank you from the heavenly dragon. Heading closer to the chamber, Issei was met with a few dozen guards that were positioned to guard the entrance of the party, so no one could interfere, but to Issei, it was all but a nuisance as he manifested his gear and charged at them. As the little battle for the entrance to the party was underway, in the grand chamber many high-class devils and heads of the remaining pillars, their peerages and Maus were seen talking and enjoying the party and what would happen soon. Both Risers and Rias' peerage were present, though while one group was happy, the other was very depressed at the thought of their master marrying that pig. Though all of them were unaware that soon they will meet a very pissed off dragon that was in a rage and off for blood. Soon enough, Riser appeared in elegant formal clothing with a white suit with red accessories, white paints, and black shoes. Getting everyone's attention as he walks a little bit forward before speaking. Hello everyone, I Riser Phoenix, welcome you all to this great marriage between both the House of Phoenix and House of Gremory. Now I will introduce you to my beautiful future wife. With a snap of his fingers, Rias Gremory appeared in all her glory in white wedding dresses with white gloves that went all the way to her forearms with crimson high. A huge applause and cheers from the massive people. But suddenly it stopped as they heard screams coming from the other side of the double doors. Before anyone could question what was happening, the double doors were destroyed in a massive explosion that ripped through the room, making a huge smoke screen. Many were wondering what happened. Elders and heads of the other pillars were demanding an explanation from the Phoenix members, but before they could answer, a cold voice cut them short. Damn guards, I told them to stay out of my way, oh well, they won't bother me anymore. The voice spoke. Who are you? What are you doing here? Can't you see that there is a special event going on? Riser shouted to the figure, only getting an energy blast to his chest as an answer to his questions, making him grunt a little as he hit the wall behind him from the blast. Riser got to his feet, wiping a small amount of blood from his lip before he regenerated like nothing happened. You damned fried chicken, shut up. Or the next attack is going to your head and I won't go easy on it like previously. Issei yelled as the smoke cleared, letting people in the room see him with his gear out. You peasant, what are you doing here? How did you come here in the first place? Riser shouted again, which made Issei create an orb of energy in his hand, reading his attack again. I'm here to take back Rias Gremory, and if it means I need to beat your shitty ass, then I will do it. You belong in a KFC anyways. Issei shouted, making some of them gasp and others to get angry at the insult, particularly Riser. Though when Rias saw Issei, she let a lone tear fall at the thought of him coming to her rescue, while all of the members of the orc surrounded Issei to stop any guard that might try and stop him. Seeing them, Issei stopped gathering energy for his attack. Issei, nice of you to come, hope you don't mind our little help. Akeno told him in her sadistic tone as lightning was dancing around her fingers. Nice to see you come also Issei. Kibo also greeted him as he created two swords in his hands. You're late. Was Kaneko's greeting to him, though he saw that she was grateful that he came to help Rias. Finally you showed your lazy ass here you weakling. Raynare told him, making him sweat drop. Sorry to keep you waiting guys, I needed to take care of some annoying pets down the hall. Issei replied to them as she scratched his head a little bit. Everyone stood down. A calm voice full of power and authority told them as everyone stopped and released their weapons and magic. The owner of the voice was a tall and handsome red-haired man with soft blue eyes. He was wearing what Issei could use as royal armor. He could almost immediately say that he was like Rias, only a male version of her and with a fucktone more power. Lord Surzik Lucifer, what is the meaning of this? One of the elders spoke, not liking the idea of Amayu interfering. It's really simple actually. I very much enjoyed a rating game between both Riser and my little sister. Though I would say that the finish was a little anticlimactic. It was still a good match though. Surzik told them, simply clearly hiding what his intentions were. So Lord Lucifer, you say that the match between both Rias and Riser was all for nothing? Riser questioned. No, the match was for real Riser, and I applaud you for your power and your extremely good use of it. It would be bad if Amayu said that the result of it wasn't good, it would look bad to the older generation. Surzik smoothly told him. Then what are you saying, Surzik? Another red-haired man told him to make Surzik turn to him with a small barely noticeable smirk. Like I said father, I plan on making this event even more spectacular. Tell me what is better than a battle between a phoenix and a dragon? He asked his father. Seeing his father nod after thinking a little bit made Surzik make a small smile before turning back to Issei and Riser. You boy, what is your name? He asked in a voice still full of authority, but it wasn't harsh, it was soft and warm. Nodding, Issei replied to the man. My name is Issei Hyodo, a student of the Kuo Academy, the current Red Dragon Emperor and pawn of Rias Gremory. Very well Issei, what are your intentions for coming here? Surzik asked while faking his curiosity, which little surprised Issei. He is a good actor, I will give him that. Issei thought as he decided to play this little game. It's simply Lord Lucifer. I'm here to bring Rias Gremory back, it's boring back home without her being there, and I'm sure that she could find a better husband than this fried chicken. Issei replied with a small bow at the end, not missing a small smirk coming from the red-haired man. Riser, what do you say about showing us one last time the beautiful power at your disposal? It would make this evening even more entertaining for both people here and Rias and me. Surzik asked with a little narrowed eyes, daring him to refuse. Seeing that look, Riser's sweat dropped a little bit before nodding. If the great Lord Lucifer asks, then Riser would be more than happy to make his final show of power. Giving him a nod, Surzik turned to Issei and asked something that shocked all the people in the hall. Issei Hyodo, what would you like if you won this little match? It could be anything you desire. Power, woman, peerage, gold. Lord, what are you saying? How can you do this? An elder shouted in rage, seeing what Surzik was doing. What? I asked him to fight for the entertainment for my little sister's wedding party, so it's only reasonable that we give him something in return. He answered in a laid-back voice before returning his attention to Issei. Issei honestly would very much like to just get his freedom back, but that would do more harm than good right now, and he made a deal with Grafia, so he won't turn his back on her now. Well, that is all nice and attractive what you told Lord Lucifer. I ask that when I beat him you give Rias Gremory freedom back and make it so that she won't be thrown into another marriage agreement without her consent. Issei replied, getting a nod of acceptance from the red-haired Mao. That could be achieved, of course, if you win Issei Hyodo. Now let's get this battle started. Surzik told him as he snapped his finger, teleporting everyone at the battlefield that resembled a ring with 4 king pieces on 4 corners. In the middle of the field, Issei and Riser stood glaring at each other. Issei was still in his school uniform, while Riser changed into his fighting attire with a long white-sleeved shirt with a v-neck that showed his chest and black pants with also black shoes. You peasants, you will pay for this. Riser will destroy you. Riser told him in a treating tone as he took his stance. Issei, however, completely ignored him as he turned to Rias. Permission to promote? He asked, getting a nod from teary-eyed Rias. Nodding, Issei also took his stance as the gear appeared and started boosting him. You can do this, Ice, was all that members of the orc thought at the same moment. Watching what their comrade would do and hoping for the best. Grafia suddenly appeared in between them, making it clear that she would be a referee in this battle, just like in the rating game. I, Grafia Lucifuge, will be the referee for this match. If I see anything that goes against the rules I will intervene, and the one who broke the rules will automatically lose. Is this understood? Grafia said to both males, only getting a nod as a response. Nodding back, Grafia announced something that shocked Issei and orc members. This will be a one-on-one battle between Lord Riser and Issei Hyodo, the Red Dragon Emperor. The stakes are as such: should Riser win, Issei Hyodo would be immediately transferred to Phoenix family. And the marriage would go through without questions, but should Issei Hyodo win, the marriage would be dissolved and Rias Gremory would be free from any other married agreements in the future. Betting over his shock, Issei steadied himself before the battle of his life. Now, without any further ado, let the battle begin. Graphia said as she teleported away. Promotion Queen. Issei shouted as soon as Graphia left, feeling power swelling in his blood as he started to get his surprise underway. Riser would be worried if you were given 3 to 6 months more to train, but in this state, Riser will crush you with ease. Riser told him as he stood his ground waiting for Issei to attack him. You know you are right about that. I'm not a genius with magic like Akeno, I'm not an expert with a sword like Kiba, nor am I good with pure strength like Kaneko or with healing like Raynare, but you know what? I don't care that I'm not good at any of that. I will show you what happens when you try to kill and insult the heavenly dragon. Do it DDRAIG. Issei said his voice was normal, but it ended in a powerful roar that scared most of the audience. Riser, this is what you unleashed, hope you are happy. Welsh Dragon Balance Breaker. Scale Male. Issei roared full of bloodlust that was enhanced by Drag. Welsh Dragon, Overbooster. Drag roared as he also started fueling Issei's strength even further. As soon as the devils heard the announcement coming from both Drag and Issei, they knew that Riser was fucked. He may be strong, but again it's the titanic powers now at Issei's command. It was like trying to push the mountain. The red flash of light erupted where Issei stood, blocking everyone's side of him. As the light finally died out, everyone was shocked at what they saw. Issei was in red draconic armor that looked intimidating to look at. There were 6 green gems, 2 on his hands and 1 on each of his knees. His draconic helmet had 2 green eyes that made him even more frightening to anyone that faced him. That's a forbidden move. One of the elders said in shock. Hearing that, even the 4 Mayus paid close attention to the battle, waiting to see what the legendary Welsh Dragon Balance Breaker could do. Now the true battle between the bird and the dragon began. Partner, remember, you have only 10s to beat that damned bird. After that, your balance breaker would wear off and you won't be able to use it again today. Drake smoothly lied to his host since he with Elsha knew that Issei, with his training with both of them, reached that point as he needed strong emotions to bring it out. Ice dear, use this opportunity to inflict as much damage as you can before you return to your base form. Elsha instructed him to also hide the same fact that Drake hid. Nodding, Issei rocketed towards Riser, reading a punch as Riser quickly released his wing and shot towards the skies. Issei couldn't stop in time and he collided into a king piece that was completely destroyed by the impact that occurred. Lifting himself from the rubble, Issei spread out his dragon wings and took to the skies, where Riser was waiting for him. Reaching where Riser was waiting for him, he asked in a mocking tone. What's wrong, you Riser? I thought you would crush me, but all I see is you running away from me. Why, you insolent brat. Riser will show you the power even you filthy dragons are scared of. Riser shouted as he charged at Issei at full speed. When they heard his insult, both Drake and Issei were pissed, so Elsha did what was necessary to win this battle. Issei, quickly inhale air, and on my mark relisted, Drake, when he attacks you transfer as much power as you can. Elsha explained a quick plan that would at least wear down Phoenix magic stamina a little. Nodding, Issei did what he was told as he relisted his helmet and took a big gulp of air to prepare a fire breath attack that he was training with Drake. Well, Drake started boosting Issei as much as possible. Boost, 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 boost. Drake's voice was heard by everyone, widening their eyes a little bit. As the Phoenix closed enough for the attack to hit him point blank, Elsha gave her signal. Issei, Drake, do it now. Elsha shouted in Issei's mind. Take this, you fucking chicken. Issei shouted as he relisted his helmet and sent a torment of fire that at first didn't do anything to Riser, that is until Drake did his part in Elsha's plan. Transfer, Drake roared as he sent all collected boosts at the torment of fire that engulfed the Phoenix. The result was spectacular. Riser was seen falling from the skies and Issei was right on his back, reading the punch that he hoped would break his spirit. But Riser quickly regained his bearings and flew to the other side, making Issei hit the ground hard, breaking it. Damned, we weren't quick enough to damage him more. Issei cursed as he stood up again and charged at the Phoenix. Riser will admit that was clever and hurt like hell, but now it's my turn. Riser said as he also again charged at Issei with great speed, making both of them disappear only to appear when their fists connected with each other's face. Issei's helmet broke from the impact of Riser's fist, but what shocked Riser was that instead of Issei's brown eyes, they were now green like the jewel in the booster gear. What happened to your peasant eyes? Why are they green? Riser asked Issei as they disengaged from each other. What are you blabbering about, you damned KFC? Issei asked as he put some distance from Riser. Your eyes are now green, why? Riser again asked, still in shock. Don't know, don't care, now where were we? Issei shouted as he again started to charge at him. But as soon as he took a few steps towards Riser he heard Drake's voice that made him shocked. Time's up. Drake announced that Issei's balance breaker vanished, making Issei face hit the ground. What? How? Dragot, you said 10 seconds, time hasn't expired yet. Issei shouted at the great red dragon emperor. You used more power, and that put your body where it can't balance breaker anymore. Drake swiftly lied. Come on, you can do it, partner, you need just a little push, Drake secretly thought to himself. Damned, Issei mattered to himself as he felt something lifting him by the neck. Now it's time to knock you out, and Rias will be my wife finally. You put up a good fight, and like Riser told you, if you had 3 more months you would defeat me. So don't feel bad, you did well. Riser told him honestly as he started to suffocate Issei, hoping to cut his airflow so he would pass out. Issei's image began to become murky as he felt his body given up, but at that moment Elsha decided to try and make him snap back to reality and bring out his true balance breaker. So you are giving up that easily, Ice? I thought that you would put up a much better fight than that. So it looks like what you promised Grafia about saving her sister and I were all a lie. Elsha sighs as she fakes being hurt by him, helping to force his emotions out. What I tried was my best, agent, but it wasn't enough. Issei sadly replied. So then that means that you forfeit your freedom and Grafia's sisters and lose your chance of taking me out on a date because you are weak. Should have known that. You know what to think, that Phoenix will humiliate you even more than Rias. Elsha decided to give one last shot before giving up and forcefully taking his body and beating that damn Phoenix. Hearing that, Issei's eyes widened. How could he forget why he was here in the first place? He was here to win his freedom and to help Grafia, but what Elsha said made him shocked. Is there a way to bring you back? He asked her. Nodding, Elsha gave him all that he needed to know. There is, but you need to win this here and now, so Issei, do it. Become the strongest red dragon emperor ever. Elsha shouted within his mind, while Drake boosted Issei's emotions, and Elsha's voice forced Issei to finally break the barrier. Riser suddenly started to feel pain as his arm that was choking Issei started to hurt badly. Releasing him, he saw something that made him pale in fear. Red light again exploded from Issei as he was engulfed in it. As the light died down after a few moments, Issei was in his armor. Welsh dragon balance breaker Drake suddenly roared, his voice battle hungry and out for blood. Huh, I thought you said I can't use balance breaker again, Drake. Issei asked as he felt his armor back on him. That was a lie to force you to unlock it by your emotions. I will explain later. Now though, we have a chicken that needs to be roasted. I want it with extra sauce. Elsha said, making both males chuckle before Elsha did what she promised. Issei, I will lend you my strength and use it well. But that said, Issei felt his power rising even more to the point that he would easily fight any high-class devil, but what made it strange is that he felt from his left hand it was like a holy energy. Decided to question it later, he charged at Riser quicker than he could dodge, impending his armored fist into his stomach, making the Phoenix spit blood. Where did you get this power? Riser questioned as he felt the holy power in his armored fist. Good friend of mine gave it to me, now say your goodbye. Issei told him before sending a punch to his face. Wait, Riser couldn't finish his sentence, because at that moment Issei's fist connected with his face, sending him flying towards the undamaged king's pieces that were destroyed as Riser slammed into it. Issei walked toward the fallen Riser, wanting to finish him off once and for all, but before he could get to him, a small figure teleported in front of him and stood there blocking him from finishing this. You little girl, move aside. I have no business with you. He said to her in a treating voice, but to the girl's courage, she didn't budge. I won't let you hurt my brother. She quietly told him as he felt him put his hand on her head and pat her slowly, making her blush a little from the gesture. Riser is really lucky to have you as his sister. Don't worry, this battle is done anyway. With that, Issei turned around. Missing a huge blush that came over the girl's face. This battle is over. Winner is Issei Hyodo. Grafia announced as he felt him being transported back to the hall where he deactivated his armor. A deal is a deal. Rias' Gremory is free. Surzik told everyone as Rias, and all of the orc hugged Issei tightly with tears in their eyes. Thank you, Issei. Rias softly to him. You are welcome, so let's go home. Issei told them as he and the group went outside, where Issei turned the pamphlet around and from it, a beautiful griffin appeared with silver wings and a mighty roar. Well, that's one way of traveling. Issei spoke, making everyone laugh. Come on, Rias, let's go home, guys, talk to you in the morning. He said as she lifted Rias into her seat and got into his. With one mighty swing of its powerful wing, Griffin took to the skies, leaving the orc members alone on the ground. Beloved. As they were on their way back, Rias tried everything to get Issei's attention, but to her luck, she saw him staring into the distance clearly in thought. Frowning, she lightly shakes him, making him turn to her. Do you need Rias? He asked. Nodding, Rias spoke. What would you want for a reward for saving me? That made Issei think for a few moments before he turned around and told her something that she didn't expect. I want to train more. So I can help someone in need. You don't want my virginity or my first kiss? Rias asked, hoping to draw his perverted side out. Nah, I would like to train more. He told her, and after that, the ride to Kuo was silent. As they finally got to Kuo, Rias decided to from now on sleep with Issei, so she announced it to him. Eyes, from now on I would move in with you. That way we could expand our bond even more, but to her shock he just outright refused her. Hell no, I did save you, but that doesn't mean that I will let you do whatever you want with me. I'm off to sleep, sleep well princess. Issei told her before she could say anything to stop him. She had forgotten that he was still mad at her for what she did and that he would soon find his way out. But what Issei didn't know is that Rias was falling in love with him and that would create a whole new set of problems for him. Done. As Rias and Issei were flying back to Kuo on the griffin that Grafia provided, said woman was watching them from the balcony with a small smile on her face. You look happy, Grafia, what's the occasion? Surzik asked as he neared his wife. I'm happy that Issei Hyodo won the match and that it's time for both of us to do what we agreed. Grafia answered him, still looking into the direction that the king and pawn flew away. Oh, what is that dear to my beauty? Surzik wanted to know more about this deal that his wife and the young Sekirute, the just fraud, had made. I will tell you when we get back, though there is also something that you should know about him. Grafia replied, seeing that Surzik is about to open his mouth. Later. Was the sentence that put this conversation to a halt until later on in the night. Nodding, Surzik just turned his head also in the direction where the duo went and smiled a little, knowing that with this young brown-haired boy is a very interesting future. On the other balcony, another conversation was taking place with both heads of the houses that just lost this marriage speaking to each other. I'm terribly sorry, Lord Phoenix, about this. A red-haired man in white tuxedo said. No, my friend, there is nothing to be sorry for. It was our greed that put this event into motion, and personally I'm grateful that Riser finally lost. The ash-blonde hair man in an orange tuxedo with golden accessories told his fellow devil. Blinking in confusion, Lord Phoenix chuckled a little bit before deciding to elaborate what he meant. What I mean to say to Zeoticus is that I'm grateful and wish to thank the Sekirute for finally showing Riser that, even though he comes from the House of Phoenix, but he can't always rely on his regeneration to help him through a fight, and I think that the Sekirute finally showed him that there are always some opponents that would find a way around an obstacle. This time was regeneration. And at any rate, we both have pure devil grandchildren. So this one isn't that much of a problem. Finally understanding what Lord Phoenix said, Zeoticus gave his 2 cents. Well, that is true, Demigra. Now a new question is set in motion. What would happen when the 2 dragon emperors met? Demigra nodded at that, also wondering what would happen next. Now that the Welsh dragon made his appearance, both devils were sure that the battle between the red and white emperors that raged on for almost a millennium would soon continue. As the wedding party ended, both Surzik and Grafia returned home to discuss what Grafia said. Making themselves comfortable in their room, Surzik put up a barrier to prevent people from hearing what was discussed. Now Grafia, will you tell me? He asked in a pleading tone that made his wife giggle a bit before she turned deadly serious, which made Surzik flinch a little bit. He may be the strongest devil alive, but compared to his wife's fury he is weak and hopeless. What I'm about to tell you doesn't go out of this room until Issei or I tell others, is that understood by the Surzik? She questioned in a way too sweet tone that made it crystal clear that if he tells anyone that he would pray for death over the torture that he would experience. Nodding furiously, he saw that his wife smiled a little at his understanding. Issei Hyodo, the pawn of your sister, would not have come to save her if it wasn't for me and the deal we made to make sure that he would do what you asked. Grafia told Surzik as he was in shock that Ria's own pieces wouldn't want to help his master. Though that shock lasted for a moment before he became angry and started to release his huge magic reserves. Grafia, seeing this, narrows her eyes at her husband before she also releases her magic, making his stop dead in his tracks. He could feel that she was starting to get pissed and that made him pale. Calming down, he asked the oblivious question. And why wouldn't Rita's own piece help her get out of the marriage that made her so angry? That's because the way Rias used to get him into her peerage in the first place. Was the reply that he got. And what was the way she used it? Surzik asked again, thinking that his sister did what she also told him. That she asked him and that he accepted without questions asked. Though the response he got shocked him again, this time to the core. She let him die by the hands of fallen angel that is now also in her peerage in her own territory. I find it hardly a coincidence. We both know that Azazel always tells us where his fallen are just in case to prevent something happening and starting the war. Grafia said in a bone-chilling tone with the emphasis on the word die. What? Was the only question he could ask in a disbelieving tone. Nodding, Grafia told him exactly what Issei told her 3 nights before the wedding when she was keeping an eye on him to make sure that he recovers. To say that Surzik was in shock was an understatement. He was sure that Rias would never be able to that to anyone, let alone a weak human that was willing to listen to her and willingly become her servant if only she asked him or told him to stay clear from the fallen. He just can't believe she would let him get killed. Collecting himself, Surzik asked about the deal that was made between the two of them. It's very simple, my dear. I would help Issei get to high class as soon as he can, and in exchange, he would help Lucy return to her old self that was destroyed on that fateful day. I think that is reasonable, don't you? Grafia told him precisely what they would do for each other's help. Surzik just stood there watching his wife with wide eyes. He thought that she would make another deal, but this was crazy. He knew that Lucy was still hostile to anyone that wasn't Grafia and that the boy, even in his balance breaker, would have a hard time against Lucy if she attacked him. That's crazy, Grafia. You know as much as myself that he would get killed if goes near her. Are you sending that boy to his death? Surzik asked, only to regret that a moment later as Grafia's eyes started shining in the silver color that he last saw during the war. Surzik, Raynare, don't tempt me or I will easily kick your sorry ass. I know what I'm doing. No one besides Euclid and I knew her better. So just do what I asked and keep quiet about this. I will go to collect Issei in a few days. Also, I think you owe him for saving your sister. He could have easily rejected your idea. Grafia coldly told him with her silver eyes still glowing with power that made Surzik nod in fear. Now with that done, let's go to sleep. We will have a lot of work to do in the next couple of days. Grafia said, though this time it was her normal sweet tone that made the great Mau take a breather as he just dodged a nuclear explosion that would have happened if he didn't comply with what Grafia told him. That is acceptable, though bring him tomorrow during lunch break here. I want to properly meet with the Issei and hear it from his own mouth of what happened. Surzik said to his ice queen as she just nodded as they both got into bed. As they snuggled close, they told the other goodnight and went to sleep. Back at Kuo, the sun was slowly rising as Issei slowly started opening his eyes. When he got home from his duel with Rias, he barely had any energy to wash up before falling into his bed completely exhausted from the fight and overusing his balance breaker. Waking up, Issei felt something to his right. It was giving a hot signature, making him wonder what it could be. Moving his head to the right, he saw what made his right side feel hot and the sight made him angry. In his weary bed on his right side peacefully slept the naked form of Rias, Raynare, the girl that he now started to hate even more. He remembered last night very well and he remembered clearly telling her to fuck off and that he didn't want her near him, but it looked like she didn't care for what he said or thought and that made him even more pissed. Picking her roughly out of the bed, Issei stood up and called his sacred gear. He heard a painful laugh before seeing Rias looking at what happened only to look up seeing Issei's pissed off green eyes looking at her full of hatred. Ouch, Ice, why did you kick me out of the bed? Rias asked, rubbing the place where Issei kicked her. I thought I told you to piss off and that I don't want to sleep with you in bed. Issei harshly told her using his draconian side that he learned from Drake to frighten his enemies. From the looks of Rias' eyes, it was working. But I'm your king, and she started to say only to be again harshly told by Issei what he thought about her as his king. And I don't give a flying fuck about that. Yes, you are my king and I'm your pawn, but to me that means nothing. I would have much preferred that you didn't save me, that way I wouldn't have to deal with you and your shit all the time, you spoiled princess. That made Rias mad. She felt that her pride got hit hard and that her authority over him was little to none. Starting to flare her power at him to intimidate him, she was met with something far worse as her plan backfired as he also started to flare his, which unsurprisingly was higher than hers. Rias, Raynare, get out of my house before I do more damage to you than what I did to Rias. Issei threatened as he flared his power even more just to make his point. He knew that it was overkill, but he honestly didn't care. Seeing that he just might do what he said, Rias reluctantly collected her stuff and teleported out of the room. Not a moment later Issei heard his mother shout at him. Issei, did you fall out of bed? Wake up already, it's time for school. Issei's attitude went back to normal as he smiled at his mother from his room. Yes mom, I'm coming down in a bit. He shouted back, picking his clothes as he started getting ready for school. Going through his normal routine, Issei made his way toward school. Only to get a visit from someone he didn't see in a few days that he was away. It was none other than the auburn-haired girl that loved to tease the shit out of him, Murayama, Chelsea. Though when he looked at her outfit he only raised his eyebrow at her, which she completely ignored. Oh, good morning darling. How are you on this fine day? Chelsea asked in a loving tone while taking his arm and hugging it. While her lips were only centimeters away from his ear, making him shiver and blush from her action. Gaining some control over himself, Issei also used the same tone as she did, making it her turn to blush as he tilted his head a little bit, whispering into her ear, "Oh my, I'm doing very good this morning seeing you here, darling. Though your outfit makes me question why you are wearing the Kuo Academy uniform." Making her shiver from his hot breath and his dragon aura that he purposely released, making her want to claim him here and now. His question however went unanswered as he looked down at her uniform. As indeed Chelsea wore the girl's uniform of the academy that Issei went to. Though while still looking normal, she added a red tie, and instead of the normal girl's long white sleeved shirt, she wore her short one, and without the shoulder cape that made her in Issei's eyes look even more cute. And hotter. Though before he could think of anything, Perverted Issei and Chelsea heard two more voices that made both of them turn and see Murayama and Cadis running up to them. Murayama, seeing the way Chelsea was holding Issei, made her face go red with anger at seeing her crush being held by Chelsea like that. Calming herself, Murayama along with Cadis greeted both of them before asking the same question that Issei asked, but to their disappointment and Chelsea's giggling, they didn't get an answer. Though they will get it soon enough and they will be shocked. Back in the Orc, Rias was still pissed at Issei, the guy that took her heart and made her fall for her. She completely refused to accept that Issei hated her, and that only made things worse. She thought about calling her brother to set Issei straight, but that would be an even bigger blow to her already beat down pride that she held in high regards. So she decided to call a meeting to get this thing done, but at that moment, she felt another person with sacred gear. Moving quickly towards the window, she saw a sight that made her anger rise and her desire to take her Issei back even more. From her window, Rias saw Chelsea, Murayama, Cadis, and Issei talking and laughing, all the while seeing Chelsea hugging Issei's arm tightly with hers. Rias wanted nothing more than to march down there and slap that auburn-haired girl across the face for holding her Issei, but before that, she would need to figure out who that auburn girl was and what was she doing here. Also to see if she had a sacred gear, because if she did, Rias wanted her in her peerage, so she turned to her bishop that was in the same class as her pawn and ordered her to scout out the girl and report what she saw. It was like any usual day when Issei entered his classroom, though something felt as if it was the calm before the storm. Knowing his damned luck, hell was going to break loose soon. As the now known as perverted duo, since Issei stopped with his peeking and vulgar stuff, tried to bring the old Issei back with their shouting about porn and showing him their magazines, which he refused more times than he could count in less than 2 minutes. Thankfully for the duo, the teacher entered the room before Issei could punch them and knock them out, saving the duo that was getting on his last nerves. "Alright, class. Today we have a new student that just transferred here all the way from Europe," the teacher told them before turning towards the door and telling that person to enter. "You can come in and introduce yourself." As the person walked through the door, it was no other than Chelsea that was now standing in front of Issei's, Murayama's, and Cadis's class. Though all of the students sat there stunned at her beauty, the mentioned trio widened their eyes. Issei just put a hand on his forehead, shaking his head, while Murayama looked like she was going to kill someone here and now. Though Cadis for her part was just in shock that Chelsea was in their class and that the girl that murdered Issei was also there in front of her. "Hello everyone. My name is Chelsea Dalton, I come from England. It's a pleasure to meet you all." Chelsea introduced herself with a polite bow that made many males have hearts in their eyes and girls to be in awe at her politeness and manner. "Alright, does anyone have a question for Miss Dalton?" the teacher asked and had a little sweat drop at a speed that hands were put up. "Teacher, please, Chelsea would be alright. I was never one for formalities," Chelsea told him in a polite manner. Nodding, the teacher returned his attention to the class. "Okay," Motohama asks, "but if it is a perverted question you will get dentition for a month." Motohama nodded, asking something that actually made sense. "Why did you come all the way here from Europe?" Giggling a bit, Chelsea pointed towards Issei, which made him pale as he quickly ducked under the table, but the damage was already done. All students except Murayama and Cadis who knew the truth turned towards him, including Raynare, only to see him hiding under the table, which made the kendo duo and Chelsea want to laugh. As he got out from the table after a moment, he saw all the death glares from the guys for what Chelsea claimed. "Issei, you took another Ani." Motohama and Mitsuda ordered him before sending their fist at him only for them, and the class was in shock when Issei easily caught their punches and flipped them over him. Making the duo land with a hard thud that made a lot of people cringe from the impact. Was all they heard as the duo rubbed their butts and had tears in their eyes. "This is not fair, how come you Issei has a lot of hot girls, first the Orc now Chelsea. This isn't fair," they complained, and while everyone was looking at him, no one except Raynare, Murayama, Cadis, and Chelsea noticed that Issei's eyes flashed green before returning to their brown at the mention of Orc. They decided to question this later as the teacher started again to gain their attention. After a minute or so it worked as he asked a few more questions before telling Chelsea to sit next to Raynare. As the auburn girl sat near the fallen, she purposely stopped suppressing her aura and let the fallen feel that she had sacred gear, and to her expectation the raven-haired girl widened her eyes only for a moment before returning them to their normal uninterested. But that didn't go without a notice from Chelsea as she ghostly smirked at her. It looks like I was right, Rias did order her to see if I had a gear. Oh, this is going to be fun, I can barely wait. Chelsea thought at the inevitable meeting she was sure was going to happen between her and Rias. She couldn't wait to tease her and make her regret losing such a nice person that she had great respect for and had a small affection for him. As the class went on, Chelsea would from time to time feel Raynare looking her way and sizing her up, but she ignored it and went on like she didn't notice. Though when the bell signalized the end of the classes and beginning of lunch, Raynare quickly disappeared, no doubt to inform Rias about her, which she didn't mind at all, and was sure that she would be called to talk to the princess after school, but for now, she had a more pressing matter. Turning to her slowly rising love interest, she couldn't be helped but laughed at the scene in front of her. As the bell rang, the perverted duo and some other males quickly closed down on Issei before he could do anything. As the duo grabbed him by the collar, Issei started to feel a little angry at them and their behavior, as he couldn't believe that he was friends with them. That earned two laughs coming from his mind. One was of his resident dragon, while the other was of the most beautiful girl he saw until now, Elsha. "What do you guys want?" Sekiruyute wanted to go eat his lunch since he was hungry. "How is it possible that you have this many girls around you?" Motohama and Mitsuda asked in unison as they both started to shake Issei, making him a little sick. Stop shaking me and I will tell you." Issei told them to immediately stop their action. "Tell us," they shouted, making him sweat, causing Murayama and Chelsea to giggle, while Caddis laughed outright. "Do you really want to know?" Issei asked, feeling a little mischief which only Murayama and Chelsea noticed. The boys nodded, and that was all Issei needed. Before leaning a little forward, he started to talk in a low tone. "That's because unlike you guys, I learned how to understand their feelings and respect them. I would also protect them when needed, but from the looks of you guys you will never understand that and you will die like a virgins." Before finishing in a shout that made all the boys get angry at him, while the girls that were left in the room fell down laughing extremely hard. Ias. The boys yelled, charging at him, but they were stopped when Chelsea stood in between them. "Now guys, well, I do like to watch a good fight. I prefer to see my darling here in one piece if you don't mind," Chelsea told them sweetly, but there was a threatening undertone that promised pain if they did anything to him. Nodding in fear, the boys returned to their seats as Chelsea took Issei's hand and rushed out of the room, but not before motioning to the girls to follow them. The girls nodded, but waited for about a minute or so before making their way outside and towards Issei and Chelsea, who told them where to find them through a text. As they finally stopped running, Issei turned towards Chelsea, who was currently holding his arm tightly in between her breasts, making him blush at the soft sensation that made its way to him. They are about the same size as Caddis's. Issei thought, with a little nosebleed that made her also blush as she noticed where she put his hand, but she didn't mind it since she was enjoying the moment of peace with him, and that made her want it more. Though after a minute or so of peace, Murayama and Caddis came running up to them. Both were looking at the scene with different thoughts. While Caddis was starting to open up her mind more to Issei, Murayama was in love with the boy and was looking at where Chelsea put Issei's hand made her jealous and angry. They had an agreement that they would help him combat his perverted nature, but what Chelsea was doing made it look like they were talking to themselves instead of helping him. Coughing a little into her hand, Murayama made the two in front of her realize that they were not alone, and it brought Issei out of his perverted state. "That really surprised us, Chelsea. How did you manage to get into this school and into our class?" Murayama questioned with a sharp glare that would send a shiver down anyone's spine, but Chelsea looked unfazed by it. "It was really simple. I finished my enrollment into this school about a week ago while Issei was away, though I forgot to tell you, she replied with a cat-like smirk at her that made Murayama want to punch her, but she quickly composed herself and asked the pawn of Rias about what happened at the game that he went to. Now that she mentioned a week ago what happened at the game. "Did you guys win?" Shaking his head made all three girls gasp, though Issei corrected that a second later. "At first we didn't, Riser beat us almost at ease. Though I went up against him later and managed to win, though not without a cost and a great deal out of it." He explained to the girls that sighed in relief, only to realize that he said about a cost and the deal put together, in their opinion, was never a good sign. What was the cost and the deal?" Caddis asked in a frightened tone, thinking about a worst-case scenario already. The cost was, Issei started to explain, only to be cut off when he heard a voice that made him growl. "Issei, there you are. Oh, if it isn't the new girl and the kendo duo, I thought you guys were enemies." Rias spoke as she and Akeno got closer to the group. "It's none of your business, Rias," Issei said in a cold voice that it made girls scared, while it made Akeno blush, showing that she was slowly turning on at the thought of him being in charge. Rias just stood there in shock at the tone he used until she remembered what had transpired early this morning at his house, which made her angry as it showed when her eyes turned red, scaring the duo thought it had no effect on Issei and Chelsea. Chelsea had experience fighting stronger opponents than herself in comparison to Rias. While Issei knew deep down Rias wouldn't and couldn't do anything to him since he was stronger than her by margins. Seeing that Murayama and Cadis were starting to fear for their lives, Issei decided to stop Ria's poor attempt to scare him by flaring his power and directing it to her. That did the trick as she instantly stopped, feeling the anger and power he directed at her increase every second. She still couldn't understand why he was angry at her. She saved his life when he was dying, wasn't that enough for him to love her and have her loyalty? Shaking Doe's thoughts, for now, she decided to bring the four of them to her clubroom where they could discuss in private and in more detail. I think it's better to move this conversation somewhere else. Don't you agree? She asked in her regal tone. Seeing that if they refused Akeno would attack them, probably Murayama and Cadis since they are weakest and can't defend themselves, Issei looked towards the three girls, seeing them nod, causing Issei to just sigh. Fine, we will go to the clubroom. Issei said as Rias nodded and started moving towards her base of operations with them following. As they walked, Issei quietly asked Akeno a question. Would you have attacked us if we refused her offer? Akeno was silent for a few moments before turning her head towards him since they were walking side by side behind the others while Akeno had a sad look on her pretty face. If you refused and she ordered, then yes, I would, though both of us know that you would take the hit instead of anyone that I would target. She replied in a sad tone, not really liking to hurt people that she considered friends and comrades. While she wasn't on the best terms with Issei also, she was grateful to the pawn of the group for fighting for Rias, even though she didn't deserve it, but if Rias would have married Riser, that would have meant that Kaneko and Raynare, who she was slowly accepting, and herself along with Rias, would become his sex toys and would be fucked without stop, and there would be nothing that they would be able to do, and to all the girls, that was worse than death. Nodding in understanding, Issei decided to ease her troubles. Don't worry Akeno. You are right, I would be the one to take your attack head on before it could hit anyone, and don't worry, I'm not mad or angry at you. You are my queen after all, and you are way higher than me at the position. Thank you, Issei, that means a lot. Giving her a thumbs up, he continued to walk in silence towards the clubroom. As they entered the clubroom, Kendo duo gasped at the interior of the room that looked weary, much like a room you would find in a castle, and not in school. Looking around the room they found another thing that made them gasp. On one of the couches sat none other than their classmate Raynare, who glared at Issei and Chelsea. While on the other they found Kaneko, who was eating sweets, not interested in anything else, and Kiba, who politely made a short bow with a smile. Taking her seat behind her desk, Rias gestured to her guests to make themselves comfortable before the questioning began. Please take a seat. Turning towards her queen that stood at her side, Rias asked, Akeno, could you please pour us some of your fine tea? At once, President. Taking their seats, both Murayama and Cadis sat near Issei, while Chelsea was looking at Kaneko's sweets with a watering mouth. Shortly after settling themselves, Akeno walked out with a cart that had a tea set on it. Serving them all the tea that they thanked her for, Rias decided to start this meeting. Now before we begin. Ice. Rias called her pawn, who looked uninterested and was looking at his phone. Yes, my king. He replied in a bored tone, not caring at all. You know, how dangerous is it for two normal girls to know about us? She questioned in a harsh tone full of authority, which was followed by a sharp glare. Though Issei was unfazed by it. And do you know how cruel it is to let an innocent human boy get killed for your selfish gain, princess? He replied with his own question that made her eyes wide. But I didn't. She started to say, but was cut off when a Gremory magic circle appeared, and out of it, Graphia stepped out still in her maid clothes that Issei remembered. Graphia. What are you doing here, and now? Rias questioned in a freighted tone, seeing her sister-in-law. Looking around the room, Graphia spotted Issei that made her make a small smile, but she also noticed three more people. Though she raised an eyebrow at sensing that all three were human and that one had a sacred gear. She just shrugged it off before addressing Rias. Hello Lady Rias, and hello members of the Orc, it's a pleasure to see you all well and healthy. Graphia replied, ignoring her earlier question. Getting the same greeting from the peerage, she smiled softly before turning to the three girls that were situated near Issei. And you three are Ladies Rias' new pieces? Graphia asked. No Graphia, they are here since Rias invited them here. Though they know about the supernatural, so there is no worry. I can vouch for them to keep the secret. He answered in a pleasant and friendly tone that was completely different to the one he used only moments ago. Making the said three girls smile at Issei's guarantee of them. Rias was now wondering why her pawn only talked to her sister-in-law in a friendly way, almost without a care in the world. Moving that thought to the back, she decided to find out why she was here. Graphia, what are you doing here? shouldn't you be by my brother's side? I'm here under orders from your brother to come and collect your pawn. Your brother wants to speak to him in private. That shocked everyone in the room. Even Issei was shocked that the Mayu would want to meet him in private. What does my brother want with my adorable pawn? Rias asked again, not believing that Surzik wanted to talk to her eyes. That is something that I can't tell, my orders were simple. Go to the orc and collect Issei Hyodo, the Red Dragon Emperor. Ice, it's a great honor to be called by my brother. You should go and see him. Rias told him, feeling proud of her servant. One thought, Grafia. Issei called her, which she acknowledged with a nod. Who guarantees me that Rias wouldn't take advantage of my absence and make my friends her servants? That legit question made the kendo duo gasp in fear, while the orc members looked at him in shock. In particular, Rias, who felt tears going down her cheek. Issei, I would never. Why do you hate me so much? Nodding, Grafia turned to Rias before extending her arm and flaring a bit of her power, and to the surprise of everyone, taking Rias' pieces from her. What? Grafia, I demand that you return my pieces to me at once. What is the meaning of this? Rias shouted at the silver hair maid. This is only as insurance to your pawn that his friends would not be turned into devils by accident. Your pieces will be returned shortly, Lady Rias. With that done, the maid turned to the brown-haired boy, who nodded and stood up. Turning to his friends, he sent them a smile, seeing their insecurity rising. Don't worry about me, I will be fine. I will call you guys when I'm back. But that said, Issei entered the circle with Grafia and teleported away, leaving a relieved duo and smiling Chelsea behind, while the orc was still in shock as to what happened, though none as much as Rias. As both Grafia and Issei appeared in the hallway of the office building of Surzik Lucifer, Issei couldn't help but question why he wanted to see Issei. Issei, do you know why Lord Lucifer wanted to meet you? Grafia asked him as she turned her head towards him. Issei was shocked that she asked him that question, since he was about to ask himself. Honestly, no, I don't, but something tells me it's about the deal we made. Issei replied, getting a nod from the silver-haired maid. You're correct. Now please follow me. With that, the both of them walked in silence through the hallway, where Issei saw a few statues, no doubt of devil's origin, and some paintings showing some of the influential devils through history. Though what caught his attention was a picture of the current Lord Lucifer and 3 other people with him and Grafia. There were 2 other males and 1 female on it. One of the males had a bald head that looked like he was in his early 30s, with armor on with a cape that was purple. The next male was a lime-haired man that, similar to Surzik, looked like he was in his late 20s and had a green robe around his shoulders. The last person was the only female besides Grafia. She looked like a teenage girl, no older than Issei, and was shorter of all of them in the picture. She had black hair that was split into 2 ponytails that went all the way down to her back, and was wearing a green suit. Grafia, who are they? The other 3 in this picture? He asked as he pointed at the picture. Ah, those are 3 other Mayus that govern the underworld, along with the current Lord Lucifer. They are Mayu Beelzebub, Mayu Leviathan, and Mayu Asmodeus. She replied after seeing what picture he pointed out to her. I guess they are extremely powerful. Issei asked in slight fear. Immensely, they are powerful enough to destroy Japan several times with just a flick of their wrist. Grafia answered him, making Issei pale. Now Issei, we must not keep Lord Lucifer waiting, he also has many other things to do. Grafia told him again as she continued to walk towards his office. Quickly following her, Issei soon found himself in front of double doors that looked like they were made from pure gold, with a lot of engravings on them and the crest of what he guessed was Lucifer's. Stopping in front of the door, Grafia turned around and fixed his collar a little bit while instructing him how to behave and talk to the current Mayu of the underworld. Issei nodded in understanding of how he would need to behave. Seeing that his clothes were fixed, Grafia turned to the door and knocked a few times before she heard her husband telling them to enter. Inside of his office, Surzik was filling out some documents, and he started to wonder if this job was worthy and enough paid. He couldn't understand why he would need to sign even the stupidest of things. He was sure to get payback on Leviathan for giving him this extra work for her to go and shoot a new episode of her show. Sighing to himself, he heard a knock on the door, which was no doubt Grafia waiting to enter. Releasing a quick breath, he told them to come in. As soon as the doors opened, it revealed none other than his beautiful wife and the young brown-haired boy that he met during the Riser's wedding party. The same boy that showed great power and will can overcome any obstacle. He would have loved to keep him in his sister's peerage, but he knew that the more the boy stayed there, the more the chances of him hurting Rias, and that was something he would try to avoid at all costs. Lifting himself up and walking around his massive wooden desk that held to him his worst enemy, towers of paper that needed to be read and signing, Surzik stood in front of them with a smile, welcoming them. Welcome back, Grafia and Issei Hyodo. It's a pleasure to meet you again, he said in a pleasant voice. Bowing respectfully, Issei answered him. It's an honor to meet you, Lord Lucifer, and on a better occasion. I hope I didn't stir the pot too much and cause too much trouble for you. No, you didn't do anything as such, and I thank you for helping me there, and please call me Surzik, I am honestly not one for formalities. Now please have a seat, we need to discuss why I called you here. Grafia, would you mind if you bring us some tea? Surzik waved him off, before gesturing for Issei to take a seat on one of the sofas with him sitting on another, while Grafia went to prepare tea for them. After a minute, Grafia returned with a tea, and on Surzik nod cast a barrier to prevent people from entering or hearing what they would discuss. As they took a sip of Grafia's tea, Issei couldn't help but comment how good the tea was that she made before going to business. Grafia is the best tea I have ever had in my life. Now Surzik, I was told that you are busy, and by the look of those towers of paperwork, I assume that you have a lot of work, so shall we just get to the point? Issei said, making the couple smile at him. Yes Issei, we should. The reason I called you here is to discuss the deal you made with my wife and what happened to you before you became a devil. And how you became one. Surzik told him in a soft voice, knowing that this was a sore point to the Sekurute. Sighing heavily, Issei nodded before asking him. What would you want to hear first, sir? The deal or what happened? After thinking for a moment, Surzik answered him, how can you become a devil if you don't mind? Nodding again, Issei told him all he knew and what he had figured out with Drake and Elsha about what happened months prior of him becoming a devil all the way to his death. After Issei finished the story, both Surzik and Grafia paled when hearing the full story of how the Sekurute became a devil was unnerving. It explained perfectly why he refused to do anything for Rias until Grafia intervened. I don't know what to say Issei, I didn't know that my lovely sister was capable of doing that. Understand this Issei, that while we are indeed devils, even we are not that cruel to let a human being get killed for our own selfish desire. I hope there is something, anything at all that I can do to amend this. Surzik told him sincerely as he could understand that if something like that happened to Rias or Grafia, hell even him, he would do anything to free them or himself from that person. I will take a rain check if you don't mind sir. He answered and smiled a little seeing that Surzik nodded in understanding. Now to the deal. Grafia said this while drinking her tea. Yes, and the deal is Issei. Surzik started to say only to get interrupted by Issei. Please just Issei or use whichever you prefer, and Grafia the same thing applies to you, you can call me Issei or Ice. He told them, making them smile a little before Surzik continued. Yes, now that onto the deal Ice, what do you intend to do when you get to Grafia's sister? Surzik asked a question that made Grafia look at him as if trying to read his mind, but stopped since she too also wanted to know how he would go about this. Honestly, I don't know yet. I don't know in what state she is and how she will react to me. So any advice you guys could give me I will gladly take as it would help me. You know her way better than I do. Issei responded honestly, seeing them nod before Surzik turned to Grafia and with a short nod gesture for her to explain what he should expect. With a heavy sigh, Grafia told him exactly what to expect when he goes to Lucy and what to watch out for when dealing with her. To say that Issei gulped in fear a few times would be an understatement. Though the laughing from both Drake and Elsha didn't help his case. He was sure that he had two sadists as friends in his mind that were pleased that he would get beaten to shit by a girl. Issei asked. So, when do you guys want me to go to her? I will send Grafia to you tomorrow to send you to the Lucifuge castle where Lucy now resides. Though Grafia will also give you a pamphlet so if you are in bad shape or in danger you could retreat, and don't worry, both Grafia and I wouldn't hold it against you if you did that. Now though I think it's time you go back to school, and don't worry I will tell Rias that you are on a mission with me. Surzik told him as he knew that Lucy was still the powerhouse she used to be. Nodding Issei stood up along with the couple before bowing, he along with Grafia started to walk towards the exit to the room but stopped when they heard Surzik's voice. Though if you manage to succeed in this, I will see what I can do about your promotion to a middle-class devil. Call it the making for returning the favor. You save my sister-in-law and I help you go up the ranks and get yourself free. That made Issei shocked, but he quickly collected himself before nodding in joy and leaving with Grafia who escorted him out of the room before teleporting him back to school. As soon as Grafia teleported Issei back to Orc, she returned to the office room only to see Surzik holding his head in his hand, clearly still not coming to grips of what his sister had done to the boy. You sure it was a good idea to send I so soon to her? Grafia asked as she saw him lifting his head and nodding. It's better than seeing my sister in a hospital bed with a full body cast courtesy of the Red Dragon Emperor. I have a feeling that he will break through to the real Lucy and maybe become your future brother-in-law. He said in a serious tone before giving her a sly smirk with a wink at the end. Maybe you are right, though I wouldn't mind if he truly becomes my brother-in-law. Maybe those two can rebuild the Lucifuge clan back to its former glory. She replied with a soft tone and a smile on her face. But that both of them returned to their business with Grafia sending Rias back her evil pieces through a magic circle. When Issei returned to Orc, he was relieved to see that nothing happened to the girls. Seeing him appear, Murayama and Caddis launched at him, tackling him into the floor before he could do anything. They stayed that way for a minute or so before they heard a forced cough that made them look and see Rias flaring her power, a little bit of pure jealousy of the girls hugging her Issei. "Come on girls, let's go back to eating lunch, I'm hungry." "Oh, and the meeting went perfectly, so don't worry," he said quickly as he got up with the two girls still hanging on to him before heading out with them and Chelsea, who followed them. As they exited the Orc, Issei told them what happened at the meeting and that he would be going on a mission so they wouldn't need to worry why he was not here. Though he made them promise him that they would stay out of trouble and stay as far away from Rias and her peerage as possible until he returns. The three heads nodding at his words, he and the girls went to eat their lunch and finished their day at school before going home. As the morning came, Issei felt nervous and scared for obvious reasons. Today was the day he would try to save Lucy from herself, however he kept thinking about the deal between him and Grafia and decided that this one won't be part of the deal. If he would save her, the last thing on his mind would be some deal. Though something was telling him that meeting this girl would change his life for the better. As he went through his usual ritual, Issei soon found himself at the front gate of the school that changed his life so much. Taking a deep breath, he walked through the gates and into his classroom. As the day went by and classes finished, Issei said his goodbye to the three girls he started to like before going to Orc to wait for Grafia to come and pick him up. Entering the room, he found everyone talking with each other and Grafia calmly waiting for him, which made him have a small smile seeing her. "Ah Issei, perfect timing, Grafia just told us that you are to go do some mission for my brother. Do the best you can and make me proud, I have faith in you. So go there and show them why you are my adorable pawn," Rias told him in a voice full of confidence, clearly not knowing why he was going away. "Thanks, I will try," Issei replied as he nodded to Grafia, who flared a little bit of her power to teleport him away. "See you guys later," Issei said before teleporting to the Lucifuge estate. Leaving his comrades to return to do what they were doing before he showed up. Appearing in the underworld right in front of the Lucifuge estate, Issei was in awe at seeing it all. It looked perfect. It was a peaceful place with a castle that was way bigger than the Phoenix Castle and looked more luxurious, though what made him be at awe was the nature around the castle. It was giving the peaceful vibe that made him feel like at home, meadows full of all kinds of flowers, forests of conifers that went from the end of meadows all the way to the mountains in the back that dominated the surrounding area with their heights. A few streams that could be heard in the background, and the air was all making him want to move here and not move anywhere else. Grafia, seeing Issei's reaction to her former home, made her smile. "Ice, this was my formal home before moving into the Gremory household. All that's left here is Lucy and the nature around this place." Turning his face toward the maid that stood to his right, he nodded. "I see, well," Grafia led the way, "I think it's time for me to meet Lucy Lucifuge," he added with a smile that made Grafia smile also. "This way, Ice," she replied as she walked him through the castle to the living room where Lucy usually spent her days. As they made their way through, Issei couldn't help looking around, seeing all the statues, paintings, creatures, and many more things that made this place take his breath away by its beauty alone. Though if he thought that this place took his breath away, he was about to be knocked on his butt by one and only Lucy Lucifuge and her sheer beauty that radiated not only her looks but also her power. "Sister, I didn't expect you to come here so soon," Issei heard a voice full of warmth called out. "Sister, I didn't come here alone. I would like you to meet someone," Grafia replied as the owner of the voice showed herself to the duo. What Issei saw was a girl about his height that looked like she was in her late teens and had the looks that easily beat Elsha and Grafia in the looks department. Seeing her beauty made him blush madly. The girl had long silver hair with a light purple tone to it that went all the way to her back, dark blue colored eyes that Issei was sure looked a little dead now, as if all hope and will for living was sucked out of them. The girl was wearing a baby blue dress with a silver color mixed in with it. The dress went down to her knees and had a V-shaped neck opening that showed her perfectly developed chest with a green emerald jewel necklace that was around her neck. She also wore small silver high heels. That somehow made her beauty even more perfect. Lucy was also surprised that her sister had brought this boy to her. She could tell that the boy was powerful and that he wasn't here to fight. Centuries of dealing with people made her able to read body language easily, and his aura was calm and not threatening or challenging. "Issei Hyodo, this is my little sister Lucy Lucifuge, the heir of the Lucifuge clan. Lucy, this is Issei Hyodo, the Red Dragon Emperor." Grafia introduced them to each other before she turned to Issei. Lucy's eyes widened at hearing that the boy in front of her was none other than Seker Yuite before returning to normal dullness. Though when she looked at him closely she could not deny that the security looked cute in her eyes, even though he was simply wearing his academy's uniform. Blushing madly, Issei bowed and in a shaky voice introduced himself. Hello, my name is Issei Hyodo. It is a pleasure to meet you, Lucy Lucifuge. Nodding to herself a little, Lucy introduced herself as well. Hello, my name is Lucy Lucifuge. Nice to meet you. Issei, I will leave you now, take as much time as you need to get to know her and help her get out of her shell. Grafia told him before turning to Lucy, who was looking at Issei and checking him out again, which made her make a sly grin at her. Lucy? She said as the girl turned to her and saw her sly grin before blushing a little, knowing her sister and her mind that hadn't changed from their youth. Yes, dear sister? She asked as she composed herself. Like I told Ice, I want you to get to know him better. Maybe he will be the one that can finally bring the old lovable Lucy back from her shell. Grafia said with a slight shrug and a sly smile that didn't go unnoticed by Lucy. I understand. Though I make no promises, sister. Lucy answered her. Don't worry about Grafia, I will help her with anything. I will do anything to return your sister back to normal. Issei told Grafia, making Lucy widen her eyes as a small flash of life was seen in her dead blue eyes. Thank you, Issei. If you need anything just call me and I will come to help. With that said, Grafia teleported away, leaving the two alone. After a few moments of silence, Lucy decided to speak. How do you plan on doing what you promised? She said in a low voice that was devoid of any emotions. Issei turned to her with a large grin, making her cheeks tint pink as Issei responded with a complete opposite tone of voice. You just have to wait and see, Lucy. Thanks for watching this video. Movie 3 is over. If you really enjoy this video, like, subscribe and comment down below and turn on that bell notification. And also check out the playlist that I have created and enjoy. Link is in the description. See you in the next video. Goodbye.